In the heart of Kensington Palace, behind the gilded doors of Queen Caroline's chambers, a tragedy unfolds. A queen, once the beacon of grace and power, succumbs not to war or fever, but to the silent, creeping rot of her own body. Imagine this: the smell of decay so powerful that even the bravest servants can't bear to enter, and a queen, beloved by her people, trapped in a body ravaged by a relentless disease. This isn't just the story of a royal's decline. It's a haunting tale of betrayal by her own flesh, as Caroline fights to maintain dignity through unimaginable pain. But death isn't the only thing that looms in these walls. What happens when a monarch's strength fades, but her will to live endures? Want to know how this grim tale ends? Subscribe to the Dark Rotten Era and comment below to share your thoughts. Like, share, and join us in uncovering history's forgotten tragedies. In the autumn of 1737, Kensington Palace stood beneath a gray sky, silently witnessing the unraveling of a royal legacy. Queen Caroline of Ansbach, once a beacon of grace and power, now lay vulnerable in her private chambers. Her vibrant spirit, the heart of the Hanoverian dynasty, was overshadowed by a body failing her. The oppressive odor of decay hung thick in the air, an unrelenting reminder that her time was nearing its end. Her feet, swollen and covered in gaping, bleeding lesions, were the source of her agony. Yet, despite the pain, the queen remained defiant. Her regal composure never faltered, despite her body betraying her. The rot had already begun its grim work, and it was clear to all that Caroline, once so full of life, was slowly dissolving. But the queen's spirit was still strong, refusing to surrender to the inevitable. For years, Caroline had been plagued by the torment of gout, a relentless affliction that twisted and burned her joints. What had started as an occasional discomfort soon turned into an unyielding nightmare. Each step she took, each movement she made, sent waves of searing pain through her swollen, deformed feet. The once strong limbs that had carried her through royal duties were now a source of constant suffering. Yet Caroline, ever the determined queen, refused to let her pain define her. She continued attending councils, receiving ambassadors, and maintaining her royal duties with grace, all while hiding the truth of her condition. But beneath her elegant gowns and composed demeanor, her feet were turning darker, with every passing day bringing a new level of despair. Her battle with gout was no longer a private one. It was now a slow, insidious war between her spirit and her body. Caroline's body had become her enemy. Beneath the surface, where no one could see, her feet had transformed into a battlefield. The once steady limbs, pillars of strength for the queen, were now riddled with deep, festering ulcers. The physicians, too afraid to speak of it aloud, whispered behind closed doors, avoiding the word gangrene in her presence. Despite her suffering, Caroline remained steadfast, continuing her royal duties. The pain she endured with every step was unimaginable. Her feet had become a grotesque symbol of the slow, creeping death that no one could halt. The disease ravaging her body was a silent betrayal, one that no one, not even the queen herself, could escape. As she moved through her daily routines, each step was a reminder that her body, once a symbol of strength and grace, was now a shell, crumbling from within. November 1737 brought with it a new nightmare for Queen Caroline. Her abdominal hernia, long concealed from the eyes of the court, suddenly strangled her intestines, causing excruciating pain. The surgeons, knowing the risks, debated for hours before deciding to operate. There was no anesthesia, no antibiotics, only the cold steel of the surgeon's knife. Caroline's screams echoed through Kensington Palace, unsettling even the bravest attendants. Despite the brutal procedure, Caroline survived. But the queen's body, already ravaged by the spread of gout and infection, could not muster the strength to recover. She lay in agony, unable to move, as the rot in her feet continued to advance. Though the surgery had saved her life, her body had been irrevocably damaged. The infection in her feet spread, unchecked and unchallenged, claiming her from within. Days passed, and Caroline's condition worsened with each hour. Her body, once strong and regal, had become a prison of pain and decay. The physicians worked tirelessly, but their efforts seemed only to make matters worse. Caroline's feet, once swollen from gout, were now blackened and rotting, the skin cracking and bubbling under the weight of infection. The stench of death grew unbearable, but Caroline, ever the queen, tried to maintain her composure. She refused to let her suffering show, even as her body betrayed her. Each breath was a struggle, each moment a reminder that death was drawing near. Her body had become a battleground between life and death, and with every passing day, it seemed that Caroline's strength was slipping away. Still, she clung to life, determined to fulfill her royal duties, even as her body began to fail her in unimaginable ways. The cold winter of 1737 brought no relief to Caroline's suffering. Her body, now a twisted shell of its former self, continued to decline. Gangrene had spread through her legs, consuming her once proud limbs with unrelenting speed. Her feet, once her greatest strength, had become unrecognizable, blackened, swollen, and lifeless. The stench of death filled the air, and even the physicians, who had once been so confident in their abilities, hesitated to approach her. Her legs had swelled to the point where she could no longer move without experiencing excruciating pain. Yet, Caroline refused to surrender. Her royal resolve remained intact, and even as the rot consumed her body, she held on to life. But the weight of her suffering was undeniable. With every movement, every breath, she was reminded of the silent, creeping death that had already begun to take her. Caroline's chamber, once a place of royal grandeur, had become a place of quiet horror. The stench of decay was overpowering, and servants would enter only with cloths pressed to their faces, unable to endure the smell of death. The gangrene, once confined to her feet, had now spread, consuming her legs and threatening her life. The physicians could do nothing to halt its advance. Caroline's feet, blackened and lifeless, were now a grotesque sight. The infection had taken hold, and it was clear that her body could no longer fight it. But it was not the decay that was the hardest to bear. It was the pain. Caroline, despite the agony that racked her body, remained resolute. Her will to live had not faltered, but the relentless pain was taking its toll. Each breath, each moment, was a battle against the inevitable. By this point, Caroline's fate was sealed. The physicians, desperate to save her, finally proposed the unthinkable: amputation. Yet no one dared to suggest such a drastic measure to a reigning queen. To amputate her feet could kill her instantly, and even if she survived, the political ramifications would be disastrous. Caroline, however, knew her body was beyond saving. The rot had consumed her from within, and the shock of surgery would only hasten her death. She understood that death was now inevitable. The decision was made in silence. The queen's body, ravaged by disease, could no longer withstand the toll. What was once a regal, indomitable body had become a shell, consumed by the very illness that had started with something as simple as gout. Now, there was nothing left to do but wait for the inevitable. As December approached, the once mighty Queen of Ansbach had become a frail shadow of her former self. Her body had swollen beyond recognition, and the once proud queen's feet were now grotesque and lifeless. The infection that had begun in her feet had spread throughout her body, and there was no hope left. Her breath came in shallow gasps, her body trembling from fever and exhaustion. Yet, even as she lay dying, Caroline maintained a semblance of dignity. She spoke of her children, her kingdom, and the future of the Hanoverian dynasty. Her body was failing, but her mind remained sharp, focused on her royal duties. The royal family gathered at her side, unsure of what to say or do. They knew that the end was near, and that the queen, who had once ruled with such strength and grace, would soon be gone. And so, Queen Caroline of Ansbach, the beloved consort and the quiet force behind the throne, succumbed to the agonies of decay. Her body, once a symbol of power and grace, was now a lifeless shell, consumed by the rot that had started in her feet and spread upward. The king, George II, sat by her side, holding her hand as she whispered one final goodbye. The queen, who had borne the weight of the monarchy with strength and dignity, was now gone. Her death was not marked by a grand political struggle or the clash of armies, but by the slow, agonizing collapse of her body. The kingdom mourned her passing, but the horrors of her final days would linger in the minds of those who had witnessed it. Her legacy would live on, but so too would the haunting memory of her final struggle. As we close the chapter on Queen Caroline's haunting demise, it's a stark reminder of the fragility of life, no matter how powerful one may seem. Her reign ended not with the clash of swords or political turmoil, but with the quiet, insidious advance of disease. If you've been captivated by this tragic story, don't forget to subscribe to Dark Rotten Era for more gripping tales from history's forgotten corners. Comment below with your thoughts. What do you think about the Queen's suffering and her legacy? Like and share this video to keep the story alive, and be sure to join our growing community. Share this with friends who need to hear it, and stay tuned for more intriguing, dark stories. Don't miss out. Subscribe now and be part of the Dark Rotten Era.